Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is our first Bridge Commission meeting, and it's going to be a little bit different tonight. What I'm going to do is our chairperson will be taking this over after we elect a chair tonight, and what we're going to do is get a chair, vice chair, and a secretary tonight. That's a little bit later on, and I will run the meeting just to make them comfortable for the first meeting. This is basically over the whole area here that we'll see what's on the agenda. It's more of a surface meeting, and then we'll start digging into certain areas that we're going to have tasks and opportunities to look at some policies, procedures, and change things that you as the board, a commission rather, feel. And remember, as a commission, if some of you have not sat on other commissions, for something like this, you're going to be like upper management for the toll bridge. And what that means is you're going to be making policy procedures, we're going to look into some things, and then we're going to recommend to the township board, who will be somewhat quasi of the executive board, if you will, and they'll do the voting, but the recommendations will come from here. The basic running of the toll bridge, what we have right now is the same thing, the same model we took from our sewer treatment plant. And Derek Thiel is here tonight, our township manager. Maureen Farrell is here. Oh, switched on me. And she's our operations manager. She runs the day-to-day operations, her and Derek. And when we were starting, her, Derek, and myself would get together. They have most of the say, that then it ran through me, then it ran through the board. So that is the way it's going to work for here. You guys and myself, I'll be up there. I'm just here. It's easier to talk to you for right now for the first meeting from down here. You're going to have the power to make some changes, to make some policy. We'll talk about procedures, and that'll be going down the line. That will flow. So let's start the meeting off. And what we'll do is I will handle the first part, or rather even probably the first meeting. And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Derek, I'm going to go through this, and I know that the action items is to get the 3 officers, so we're going to need a secretary, but I'll go through and try to write, and we'll try to hook it together. I mean, that's really about all we can do for the very first meeting we've ever had. So do a roll call vote. Let's just do this. Porcarelli is here. Theresa is here. Souheil.
Present.
Mr. McCartny, I'm sorry.
Present.
You're here.
Yes, here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Smithbauer and
Here.
Miss Dowhan-Bailey. Chris, explain this to me.
Dowhan-Bailey.
Is that fine how I said that, Dowhan-Bailey?
Bailey's fine too. It's a lot.
I just want to make sure.
TSA tells me it's a lot.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure I'm right. So, are there any additions or deletions that any of you have to the agenda?
No.
No.
With none, I want to approve the agenda as presented. So I need a motion. Somebody just say a motion to approve.
So
And a
moved.
second.
Second?
Okay, I will write this down. I'm sorry, who was the second?
I think you.
Yes, I
Okay,
made the motion.
all right. Okay, thank you very much. No presentations tonight are scheduled, and every meeting has a public comment section. I think that 3 minutes we've been using, so if there's anybody in the audience that has anything to say tonight, Derek, our township manager, come on up.
Good evening. Just really quickly, thank you all for your willingness to volunteer for this organization, for this commission. It's very important, obviously, for the successful operation of the toll bridge. So first, thank you for that. Second, if I could ask that maybe each one of you give just a little bit of information and background about your credentials, your experience. I know that you're all very qualified and we had a lot of very qualified candidates, but you all stood out from the group just with your experience and education. So I think if you gave just a little bit of history about your work experience, your education, it will definitely put some of the residents' mind at ease about the credentials associated with this group. So.
Okay.
Who'd like to start? Go ahead.
Kevin Flavin, excuse me. I would like to thank everybody for volunteering to do this. As Derek mentioned, there were a lot of other good people that that volunteered to be on the Bridge Commission, and I know that everybody appreciates this starting and taking off. So thank you all.
Okay. I'll start. Hi, I'm Chris Johnson. Moved here back in 1985. Graduate of Purdue University in Wayne State. Finished a 35-year career at Ford in manufacturing and construction and facilities management. In 2021, I went to work for a privately held company based in Detroit.
And I'm Chris Dowhan-Bailey, and I'm a 49-year resident of Groseal, graduated University of Pittsburgh and Detroit College of Law, which is now Michigan State Law School. And I worked for 34 years for the Army Corps of Engineers, ending as a district counsel for the Detroit district. And now I serve as the secretary of the board of directors for Credit Union One, which is about a $1.8 billion credit union in the state of Michigan. They also have branches in northern Ohio. So used to marine construction, big construction projects, and also working finances. You know, the money has to be right for things to work. So,
Thank you.
Daryl McCartney. We moved here 2010. My kids attended and graduated the school system here. They live here, so hope to have many more generations here. I'm an engineering executive. After 30 years, I've held engineering executive roles at IBM, Cisco Systems, Microsoft. I'm used to running programs that are hundreds of millions of dollars with dozens of people that are mission critical infrastructure. But at the end of the day, I'm an engineer.
Thank you, sir. Patrick.
I'm Patrick Smithbauer, professional engineer. I'm a licensed civil structural engineer in about 9 states. Also studied architecture at University of Detroit, but graduated 3 times from Wayne State. Bachelor's, master's, and then an MBA. About 50 years experience in the industry. I've been an executive at various levels, including president, chief operating officer of some of the significant companies in the Detroit and Cleveland areas. So my structural background, I thought, well, perhaps I can offer something to this group. So I brought that to the group. And I've been Groseal here since about 2000. My wife and I live here. Karen Wilson Smithbauer, if any of you know her. And we live here. We've got 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and now 2 great-grandchildren and 2 more great-grands on the way. So give you an idea where we're at with that. Experience a lot of large projects that I've worked on, office buildings, industrial projects. One of my biggest ones in this area is the Chrysler plant that was built about 15 or 20 years ago on Van Horn Road. So that building was my project. It was fun to do. But I'm glad to be part of this and feel that I can contribute something here.
Thank you, Patrick. We're all glad that you are here, obviously. As Derek stated, we have some knowledge, we have experience, we have leadership, we have financial, we have law, we have engineering field, and I can't wait to get some of these things moving. And I know that we're going to be in good hands in running this toll bridge. And I really appreciate you guys stepping forward and just putting in that application. That's a big step, because this is going to take some time. You know that. Not to say the other commissions don't, but there might be some things in between the meeting, maybe a study session or something that comes up we need to speak about. This is a large project, and all of you have been involved in large issues, dollar amount, value amount, and importance. So this is no other, it's the same, so. All right, thank you very much. What we're gonna do is, next on the agenda would be usually approval of minutes, but this is always for the meeting previous. So since this is our first meeting, that is checked off already. All right, department financials. In your packet, there are, I think it's a 2-page, the first one for department financials. Theresa McLachlan, who is our financial director here, would you like to just hit the important points? Is there anything that you would like to talk about for these? I guess it'd be actually both. I mean, you don't have to do a whole view of it, but I'm just saying, is there anything that?
Not, it'll be 2 minutes.
That's up to you. Thank you. Which one? That's the first 2 pages,
A little bit
correct?
bigger.
I can't see that.
So since this is our first meeting, I took this opportunity to provide to you a couple of sample reports that we also provide to other commissions. We can certainly at any time change, add to it, take away, whatever you're most comfortable with, wanting to see every month. So the first 2 pages is the statement of revenue and expenditures. This shows the year, as of 7/31/15, this shows the cumulative activity for our fiscal year. So fiscal year starts on April 1st each year. The first column is the current budget. The second column are the actual figures as of 7/31/25. The third column is just the activity for the month of July. And then the fourth column shows, out of the budget, how much do we have left to work with, or are we expecting to get? So the first section will always be the revenue. What money do we have coming in? So for the first year, the budget presentation, we had to make a lot of assumptions because this was our first year. We had limited information from the prior owner, and we've learned a lot in the last 5 months. So for example, under the revenue, I budgeted for 8 weeks of the Free Bridge being closed. It was closed for 4 weeks. So those numbers are going to have to be reduced some when we do the budget amendment. The next section is expenditures. So those are a list of expenditures. We're trying to use what they had on their financial the prior owner's financial statements, but trying to blend in the account numbers that we have that are required by the state of Michigan. So you see a number of negatives in the fourth column. That indicates we overspent, but we really didn't, because there's other line items that are going to go away, and that money will be moved to the line items we're actually using. So far our biggest expenditures have been the payroll and benefits for the 11 employees that are at the toll bridge, and the cost of our insurance to insure the bridge. So I can provide this every month, and we can go over changes. This can be the starting point, and I can go over any unusual changes or anything specific that happened during the month, if that's what you would like. As of July 31st, 2025, the bottom line is that we have revenue in excess of expenditures of $1.3 million. Now, also what we've been working on diligently is with the money that's collected at the toll bridge, not all of that is current revenue. The $25 or $28 that everyone pays for a tag deposit, that's not considered revenue. That's in a deposit account because potentially that gets returned to them. Also, when they put money on their bridge passes, it's not recognized as revenue until they actually cross the bridge. We are working with the hardware and software companies to get the reports we need to be able to put everything in the correct buckets. So we're getting there, but we've had some struggles with them through the course of the last 5 months, but we're making progress. So it's probably still pretty close when you take all the ins and outs. That may seem like, oh, we're making $1.3 million, but one thing you have to keep in mind is that on April 1st, our first bond payment is due, and that bond payment includes over $1 million of interest since we sold the bonds in February of 25. So we're trying to make sure we're prepared for that as well. So, the second report that I provided is a listing of every check that was written for toll bridge expenses. Now, this report is larger than a normal month because I ran this report from April 1st through March 31st. So you can see all the checks that were written, the account numbers. At the end of this report is a summary by account number. So that gives a nice summary at the end, and told you specifically how the money's been spent so far. This does not include any payroll because that's in a different system. It won't have that detail, but any of the vendors that were paid. So I can, I can start with this and do this going forward, and then at any time if you want anything different, just let me know if you have any questions.
Yes.
Question, you said you have $1 million payment. Is that an annual payment or?
No. We do have we have actually semi-annual interest payments and an annual principal payment. The first interest payment is unusually large because our first payment is not until over a year from the date the bonds were sold. So that one is specifically on the larger side.
Okay.
We actually have an amortization schedule that shows the bond payment schedule over the life of the bond, so I can make sure that provide that to you for the next meeting.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. You noted your fiscal year starts April 1st and ends March 31st. How often do you adjust your budget? Is it quarterly? Because, for instance, your forecast for the pre-bridge closure was half of what you projected. When do you reconcile so your full year forecast can be adjusted?
Usually I do it in the last quarter of the year.
Only the
That's
last.
prior, in the past, the township had not been doing budget amendments. But since I've started, I've done budget amendments with a lot of things going on. Usually I can just right now get one in the last quarter of the fiscal year to try and true everything up. If there's a significant purchase that wasn't budgeted for, then that's part of the agenda item when the board of the, or the commission approves it, to say, how is this going to be funded? If we have to increase an expenditure line item, are we just adding to our total expenditures, or do we not need something in another line item that we can pull that money from? So that's part of getting the approval for if something comes up that we weren't anticipating.
The 7.5 million revenue, is that the bond? Was that the bond? The revenue from the bonds?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes.
I notice in your information, toll bridge revenue is like $13.5 million. And then another item down below in your summary, this one that you put out, has had toll bridge revenues from operation another 6 million. What's the difference between those two items? What is the second 6 million?
Is that from the budget book?
Yeah, well, that's from this summary that you sent out.
Okay.
It's from your report. Just wondering what that is.
So when we go through the budget process, we budget for our anticipated revenues, our anticipated expenditures. We sold bonds in February of 2025. That was for both the purchase of the bonds and the engineering costs for what's going on right now. So our year end is March 31st. We received the funds for the engineering costs last fiscal year, so that's sitting in our fund balance. We have that money. We're not spending it until this year, so we always present a balanced budget when we go through our budget process. So if we have excess expenses, we show that we're using prior year resources for them. So what I was doing on that page is I took the total budget, but then I backed out the $7.5 million that we had set aside for the engineering costs so that they could see what the actual revenue and expenses from normal operations was, excluding using the funds from the bond proceeds for the one-time engineering costs that are occurring during this fiscal year.
Thank you.
All set? Oh, go
All
ahead.
set.
I did have a question, so thank you in advance for sending the historical perspective. I did go through the balance and income sheets. The capital structure on this was for a for-profit entity. There's profit sharing, there's shareholders, right, as far as there's private stock, which, if I look at, we're not talking about hourly wage. I assume if we W-2'd these, they're much higher than their overtime. What decision was it when we took it from a for-profit capital structure to a public entity that we're probably not going to be doing profit sharing? We probably will not be issuing par value shares of stock. So how did that money, how does that balance sheet map over to what we're doing today?
So the toll bridge is what's referred to as an enterprise fund in the governmental structure, which is treated very similar to a for-profit company. It's the businesses of the township. So it's the toll bridge, it's the municipal airport, and it's our DPW. So on the balance sheet, it will look very similar to a for-profit, and I can also provide that next time as well. The only difference is when you get to the equity, there's no capital stock, there's no paid-in capital, there's no well, there is retained earnings because it's an enterprise fund. It might say fund balance because that's how the accounts have been titled. But if you look at our audited financial statements, they do say retained earnings. But there's no stock.
And the profit sharing, how did that fold in?
There is no profit sharing. There is so we're kind of in between right now because the purchase agreement said, guaranteed all of the employees were employees of the township with similar benefits for a minimum of 90 days. So while we were, the assumption was it would be around 90 days at that time. So the township doesn't actually have it doesn't have a defined contribution plan. It has a defined benefit plan, with the state of Michigan. So it's referred to as the MERS retirement plan. Because initially they were being considered as temporary employees, we were not required to include them at that point. And we also have an option where employees can contribute to a 457 plan, which is similar to a 401k plan. So what we did is we offered them a payment in lieu to give them an extra payment so they could put it into an IRA or a Roth IRA or something like that, which we will do until we decide what direction we're going in, whether we're going to use a staffing company or keep them as township employees. Once we make the final determination, then I may have to go back and put in the contribution to the beginning of the year. I'm not sure. We have to see what we're doing. So there is no profit sharing expense. There is right now in the budget that payment in lieu for retirement.
It's just,
But we have to contribute a percentage. If they were part of the MERS defined benefit plan, we would have to contribute a percentage, and that would be our retirement expense.
it's just helped me make the jump on the capital structure from this private to now public enterprise, because it's quite a bit of number of dollars that we have from prior to how it's being accounted for today. So if help with that, understand that'd be huge for me. Thank you.
So if you look at we have the cash and we have the fund balance. The money that came in is for it's either on April 1st, after we bought the bridge, we still had cash left over, but we also had the asset of purchasing the bridge. And the opposite side is the liability for the bonds that we have to pay off.
There are some definite differences from an accounting standpoint and business operation standpoint between a private entity and a public entity, even if it's an enterprise fund. When we looked at the overall financial pro forma for that bridge, we understood that there were certain expenditures that we would not be incurring moving forward with our ownership. Taxes being one, at least. There will be some in the first year, but moving forward, that wouldn't be a cost which that toll bridge had under private ownership. Profit margins and payment to executives, those things aren't, costs that we're gonna incur. That is a reduction in expense that obviously the revenue doesn't have to support. In saying all that, that was all considered in the overall strategy or design of the bond, the finances for operation when we looked at all that sort of stuff. That was all considered under the proposal that we presented to the residents. So there are some differences from a revenue and expenditure standpoint, just based upon the ownership structure. So hopefully that answers some of what you're looking for.
It does. It's just, this was a great historical, right? Going back, looking at it, looked like staffing was somewhere, unless the free bridge was closed, it was like around 11%, right, as far as give or take. But then there's all these other liabilities. I was just like, if we're making forward projections, I just wanted to kind of understand what Derek kind of just walked through.
So looking at the budget that was adopted, the presumption was, the payroll that I put in the budget was only for 3 months. So this budget will have a pretty drastic amendment.
But there's also, I
Yeah.
want to be clear, because it's not that the additional costs weren't anticipated for a 12-month budget year, but you see under staffing solutions,
Yeah.
you see an allocation. The assumption was made that, the cost for the employees for 3 months were in the wages and benefits standpoint. The rest then at that point would have rolled down into staffing. So it's not that the budgeting was incorrect, it's just some of the assumptions that we made, it didn't end up working out that way, but it wasn't that those costs weren't accounted for elsewhere within the budget.
The capital structure is different. The accounting was fine. It just, unless you understand that transition, it's not a flat 11%. It's much more than that.
Right.
Anything else from the board? Any concerns? Teresa, you're the second one you went through. Are you good? I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm.
Are there any other concerns or
I'm
questions for
fine,
this,
and, you know,
this
I-
area?
I did have a procedural. So if one of the board members here wants information, what's the is there a distribution list? How's that get filed? Do I send it, or would Chris send it to Derek? What's the, how do we all stay?
It depends upon the type
Yeah.
of information you're looking for. So, financial information, Theresa would probably be your best start with that. She might have to speak with the operations manager, Maureen, if it's detailed information about operations. As far as engineering information, it might be me, and then I might have to go to H&H or Rains for that information. So it kind of depends upon what type of information you're looking for. So, but
But procedural, how do I make sure that I'm asking for something and keep coordinated with the fellow
Everybody else.
commission members and vice versa?
yeah, so
Do they have email addresses?
you
can
guys
I-
don't have email addresses?
Yeah,
do
yeah,
you?
we do. It's,
Not personal ones, township ones?
no.
Okay, so we'll get you township email addresses, and then we can put together some sort of listserv. Obviously, being part of a public commission, you need to be aware that, you know, there can't be conversations that go on about making decisions about certain things. Asking for information, distributing information, that's not a problem, just you can't be debating, you can't be making decisions via email or anything like that, which I'm sure you guys all probably are aware of that already. Yeah, it'd be best to copy everybody so everybody's on the same page with any kind of questions or corresponding information that goes your way.
Thank you.
Yep.
So if, you know, you should email everybody. If you're requesting information that you want to make sure everybody has, once I know I have your email addresses, I will probably send you a balance sheet as of 7/31. So I can also send you one as of, we did have activity because of the bond sale at our last fiscal year. So we do have, that's when we started our records. It just reflects, you know, the money is either we had it or it was held by the title company. Because it being a 24-hour operation, we had to wire the money ahead of time before April 1st, so that on April 1st, the prior owner could be paid. So,
As you put these things together, from a business standpoint, I'm used to seeing things where I'm looking at operational revenue and operational expenses. And then there's capital improvements on the other side of it. I kind of look at everything that we're spending against the bond as kind of on the capital improvement side. And so I'm interested in making sure that we keep track of what we've spent against what we bonded so that we don't exceed that. And then I'm also looking at what we're doing on a day-to-day basis in the operation of the bridge, and are we doing okay in that area, which would include revenue and also any taxes that are coming in.
So typically, what we do, so this year, for this fiscal year, the only expenditure that we're anticipating through March 31st was mostly the engineering costs. So initially, you would see this on the report, it would be expended, but it's actually a part of the cost of the improvements of the toll bridge. So one of the entries I do at the year-end close is I move those costs into the balance sheet as a fixed asset. So right now, the only fixed asset on there is the cost of the bridge. And then you'll be able to see on the balance sheet the cost of the capital expenditures at this point, and the bond.
Yeah.
You know, the bond less any payments. We have not made any payments yet. The first payment is due April 1st of '26.
Another thing that might put your mind at ease a little bit, so when we have bond revenue that comes in to support a specific expense, we'll then go to bid, and then the contract will be awarded. For example, in our engineering bid, it's $3.5 million. It's a not to exceed. So it's a fixed contract. any deviation or increase in that contract amount would be required to come back to the board for approval. So there wouldn't be a way for us to exceed the budgeted or the authorized expenditure without approval by the governing agency. Same with the construction project. When we get to that point, it'll be a contract. Anything above and beyond that, a change order would have to come back to the board, which at that point you would review whether there's budget capacity for that. In addition, when invoices come in, the engineers will review those invoices to ensure compliance with the contract and that assure that the work has been completed, and then it'll go through our check run, which then has to go to the board for approval as well. So there's a fair number of institutional controls on compliance with the budget and the availability of funds to make those payments. And on top of that, when bills come in, the managerial oversight, the manager for that department for which that budget is, or that cost is incurred, will code that invoice to a specific account for a specific project. As of right now, I code our engineering bills to our bond account, which then, obviously, that bond revenue goes to pay for those engineering expenditures. So there are a fair number of institutional controls to ensure compliance with the budget and availability of funds.
Very good. By the way, I see that you're almost maybe $4 million below budget on the engineering.
Yeah,
So that's great.
So the engineer's estimate was actually $8.5 million for the engineering service.
Yeah.
Our bid came in at $3.5 million, so we were doing backflips around
Yeah,
there.
very good.
That's $5 million of taxpayer money that we were saving, so that's fantastic.
Right.
And we've only had 5 months of operations, but do we have a feel yet for how the general revenue coming in from tolls is offsetting the cost of operating the bridge, separate and apart from the engineering and the construction upgrades that will be forthcoming?
So in a normal month, when both bridges are open, the average so far has been about $200,000 a month of revenue coming in, which is exceeding the expenses that are going out. One of the, obviously, the biggest expense so far is the insurance on the bridge. And we have to pay that at the beginning. One of the policies is a 6-month policy, so there'll be another $300,000 paid out in October as well.
And-
But on a normal basis, the expenditures are lower than the revenue coming in, which will also help when we finalize the millage rate for 2025.
And we had additional usage because we had the closure of the county bridge, briefer than we expected.
Right.
But how does it look to you when the county bridge is open? How
Yeah.
are you feeling about the operational expenses?
Yeah, so the revenue is exceeding the operational expenditures.
Even
Yeah.
with the county bridge open?
With both bridges, even with both bridges open, yes, yes. So,
Very good.
And can I add just one? Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just add one thing? Theresa, talking with our insurance people, once the bridge, as you know, we have a plan to repair it and make it truck-worthy, if you will, then the insurance rates do go down. One of the problems is because of being an older bridge and to insure it is higher rate. So he did say, is that, I thought you weren't agreeing. Okay, but no, he did say once it's repaired, we have such an astronomical premium. I mean, we were stunned. We did not anticipate that. When we were checking, it didn't come back that way. But as you can see, the number it costs to insure that bridge for a year. But that will go down once it's, I use the word repaired. That's not the correct word. Upgraded. Upgraded is more appropriate. So just so you know that too, that's a big hit right now.
I know we need specialized parts right now too, which I know you're hoping to make more generic as we go forward, maybe.
And the engineers talked about that. All right. We set on that one? Everybody good?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Teresa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on. We're going to go to the action items. What I'm going to do is I will read these now, and we'll go from there. Each person, if you have something to bring forward on an action item, that individual in future meetings, usually you'll do the reading. I'll do both of these tonight. It's not a problem, just to make things move here. Action item number 1, I recommend, or it is the recommendation, the Groseal-Toll Bridge Commission hereby approves the following meeting schedule for fiscal year 25-26. I need a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, I'm writing as we're going. So those, by ordinance, we have to have one a month, and it'll be September 17th, October 15th, November 19th, December 17th. Those are of 25. Starting in 26, it'll be the 21st of January, February 18th, and March 18th. We can change those if you'd like, if something's going on. We can add a meeting. Either way, the adoption of this is required, and the meetings will be held during the third Wednesday of each month. And we'll talk to you on the commission to see if you feel that 6 o'clock is appropriate for you to make it. If not, we can always change that. That's not a big deal. Meetings are from, 5 o'clock is kind of early, but some start at 5 and some start all the way up to 7. So let's get this through, and then if you have a problem with the time, once again, we can always adjust it. So, action item number 1, approval of meeting schedule. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. Thank you. Motion carried. Second one, approval of officers. Let me pull this down here. Now, in our ordinance, I would love to help you guys out, but it appears I can't. So we're going to have volunteers from you 4, and there's actually 3 positions. And those positions, we will get into after I make the motion. The recommendation is Groseal-Toll Bridge Commission hereby appoints the following individuals for officer positions for fiscal year 25-26. Now, because, I'm sorry, I need a second on that.
Second?
Okay. Apologize again, we usually don't write while we're going, but I've got to this time. The history is the nominations. Obviously, we have to do it now at the meeting. We're just going to do it. We'll talk just informally. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. The unfortunate part is that Derek and I even looked at it. I can't be on. I'm the liaison from the Township Board, and the liaisons can't be the chair. I can fill in if somebody isn't here, whatever, but for the most part, unfortunately, there's 4 of you. So does anybody want to volunteer for, let's go to the top. Does anybody like to be the chair? All you're doing as the chair, if you haven't done this before, you just run the meeting, you do what I do, you ask for a second. The secretary will be doing the notes. So you're basically just going through the sheet. The sheet's already made up for you. And I know it takes a few meetings. It took me a bunch of meetings to get it down, just because you're not used to it. So does anybody like to step forward? Patrick? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Derek, can we vote on all 3, putting them in there as opposed to each individual? I mean, I don't see a difference.
Yeah, I think you can do all
The
3.
whole thing at once? That would be great, okay. All right, so, chairperson. Okay, sir, how about the vice chair is just to fill in? Errol? McCartney. All right. Does anybody like to take notes for the meeting? The minutes are not, it's not like a transcription of the entire meeting. It's not a exact. All you need on the secretary's job is what the motion was, who voted for it, how we voted rather, and who seconds it. All we do for minutes by the Open Meetings Act is you just have to write down what was voted on or what decision was made. That's really it. They're very clean, very easy. Does anybody want to be the secretary?
Daryl just put my hand up for me.
Chris, did you say you?
No,
you-
No,
Chris did.
we were
Chris
doing
did.
rock, paper, scissors.
I saw your,
It's just us two.
I'm sorry,
So
but
she won.
Do you want it?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I noticed she backed up and your
No,
seat was
I
full.
was trying to fade into the back. No, that's.
All right, sir.
Fine choice.
Chris,
I'll do it.
are you? Okay, wonderful. Okay. So what the motion is going to read then is that the following people will be the officer positions for 25-26. The chairperson will be Patrick Smithbauer. The vice chair will be Daryl McCartney. And the secretary will be Christine Dowhan-Bailey. Okay? Any discussion? Anything, guys are good on that? We all good? All right, thank you. For action item number 2, for approval of officers, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, 5-0 passed. Thank you. All right, now the discussion items. I think, Derek, what we'll do is, would you like to just come up and, we're gonna just do an overview of what we're looking at, what we need to do for the future of the runnings of the toll bridge, and those will be our discussion items for tonight. So if you could start that,
Eric, just so we can follow along, are we on page 3 here, the progress report of the meeting minutes? Or
run-
there's so many, there's a lot of documentation, which
No,
I'm appreciative of.
I think the review of staffing proposals, you refer to just the email, that emails that were sent out with the staffing
In
proposals.
proposals right now?
Yeah, so, and maybe I'll clean this up a little bit. Mr. Johnson had actually asked prior to the meeting, just an understanding of how these agendas work. And so action items at the meeting, you're specifically being asked to adopt a motion, vote on it, approve it. Discussion items are generally just introducing an idea. We're not asking for any kind of motion or action at the meeting. It's just to have a conversation about what's being presented to you. And all these items on the agenda under discussion items fall into that category. They're just opportunities for us to have a conversation and to hopefully strategize about next steps forward, okay? So there was a lot of information that was presented to you previously via email on the various staffing proposals. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look through those. The original proposal floated to the voters. The idea was to essentially outsource the staffing of the toll bridge. When we had the conversation with the Township Board and putting together the RFP, the preference of the board was to emphasize and stipulate the preference of the community was to continue utilizing the existing staffing that's at the bridge, knowing that they're the most skilled, they have the experience. So the majority of the proposals we received, I think, matter of fact, all of them have proposed utilizing the existing staff that's at the bridge. I think we received 8 of them, something like that. They all had varying, costs associated with them and benefits associated with them. So really, we just need to review those, determine, the next steps forward, understand if you need any additional information that we can gather for you to hopefully assist in the conversation. I think probably a pertinent piece of information would be, for example, what is the current cost of staffing under the township's employment of the existing staff, so you can compare that to what these proposals are offering. I'm sure that would be something that would be relevant. And then sometimes what we do when we receive proposals is we'll bring staffing companies in, interview them, or talk to the proposer of the RFP about what services they can provide. Sometimes we develop subcommittees, so long as it's not a majority member of the commission or majority of the commission, we can develop subcommittees that they can kind of do some of that legwork and meet independently with these groups. I strongly would suggest that if we're going to go through the analysis of these proposals and have conversations, that the current operation manager is part of that conversation. Ultimately, the staff under these proposals would work for this outside company. We would hope that I would hope that they would have some sort of say-so in who they would work with, and Maureen does a great job of advocating and understanding what the staff would prefer. So understanding we're the ultimate decision maker and all that, but having a seat at the table, I would strongly recommend. But really, what kind of questions do you have? Where do you see the most efficient, next step being as far as how to, have a conversation about this and eventually get to a decision? So.
Right to left, left to right.
Yeah, so the bids are 6-7 months old. Some of them had expiration dates. You had a couple of them that were, looked like closer to the township's actual expenditures now. To me, and there was a couple of amendments, and I think there was some other information that was sent out. I think it's a good study to do. I think you need to understand both, the pros and cons of it, but I think you should narrow it down to a couple, the top two, preferably a local company. I think there was a firm in Texas that was on there, and some other out-of-state companies. Take the top two, send out a best and final offer with all the amendments, and say you've got X amount of time to get back to us, because there's the numbers range. There's a wide range of numbers on the bids, and it was a very defined scope of work and request for a proposal. So
Yeah, and just a little bit insight on that. When we put these proposals out, it was prior to actually us owning the toll bridge, because the intent was to try to bring the staffing company in ASAP. So we went ahead and moved forward with it. We were really aggressive with getting the proposal out. Because of that, we didn't have some of the employee information as far as how many were on healthcare, how many were on Medicare. So some of these companies had a difficult time putting together, a lot of them did, majority of them did, putting together actual healthcare costs, for their proposals. So once we purchased the bridge and had some of that additional information, we then distributed it to the entire group of companies that made their proposals. And that's when that second addendum came in that had that revised cost associated with it.
are the bridge employees currently under a collective bargaining
No,
agreement?
they are not.
They're not. They are or not?
They are not.
No.
Okay, they're non-union. Okay.
Yes, non-union. So,
Were they?
not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Is there a date that you need to get this resolved by?
I think in talking with Theresa, we would like to try to get resolution of this by the end of the calendar year. The reason being, the employees, we were unable to continue the healthcare coverage they had with the previous owner of the bridge. So they ended up coming over to the township's healthcare policy. At that point, their deductibles were all reset. So we wouldn't want to, send them to a staffing company, and then their deductible would then get reset again before the end of the calendar year. So almost having 3 resets within a 12-month period of time. Whereas if we did it around January 1, it would be, the same as if they stayed with us or went somewhere else.
A question I have is, since these proposals, the responses are a little bit old, and the RFP went out before we owned the bridge, and now you know more, are the RFPs still good in your mind? Do you think there should be another round of them? Do you have, in a public bidding process, are you able to go back to the people who responded and ask for additional information, or rejigger the RFP somewhat?
We are. So there are some additional allowances for professional services that we don't have with like goods.
Right.
Where we can sit down and negotiate with different companies. We don't have to pick the lowest bidder. We can pick out the one that we feel is going to serve the community the best. I have received a bit of feedback from some of the companies that made these proposals. In my guesstimate, the vast majority of them, I think that the pricing is still valid. So I wouldn't have necessarily any concerns about them coming back and saying, hey, we've got a problem here. If they did, it might be insignificant as far as the expenditure goes. I think to Chris's comment, if you went back and you selected the 2 that you would prefer to talk to, I'm sure we could have those conversations with them just to make sure that their bids are still solid. So,
Another question I have is, now that you've seen these bids and you've had 11 employees from the bridge under your umbrella here at the township for a few months, 5 months, are you still desiring this kind of a process rather than having the employees stay with the township?
I think that's a decision that's above my pay grade.
Okay.
I think that the township has done a nice job in working with the employees, and the employees have done a nice job working with us. I think the conversations that I've been part of with the board and board members, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think that there's been a very conscious effort to try to stay as close as possible to what was discussed with the public during the whole process, to hold to those promises that we made. So I think we have to be very careful about any decisions made as to whether it complied with what we had presented to the community, and if we are going to deviate from that direction, that we have very valid reasons for doing so, that we can communicate to the public, so they understand, right, why we decided to go that direction rather than what we said we were going to do.
It was in reviewing these RFPs that drove me back to the income and the balance and the free cash flow. And then until we understand how we're mapping this new structure and we can project forward, I'd be very uneasy about going into another contractual obligation till we have some, and again, very sensitive to employee retention, very sensitive to having people bear burden, even though I don't want to pay my deductible twice, 3 times. But I like Chris's conversation as far as, I'm not sure what promises, I don't know what that means. But right now they are township employees. Right now it's critical infrastructure. I would equate it equal to fire, police in terms of some regard. There's maritime safety, there's vehicle safety. I got the text like everybody else last night. I'm thinking, what a critical function of our community. So until we have financial headlights on this, I don't know if I can go much further into the RFP process, because we might find out that the existing funding structure doesn't work.
Well, I don't think you need to pause the pursuit and do the study once you have a solid benchmark in comparison to what you're actually spending. Then you make the go no go decision. I mean, you need to have that side of the equation to be educated enough to know this is the right move or not. We don't know that yet. We know where they're at today. We know one side of it, but we don't know the other.
I'm not certain.
Well,
It's, I was, from everything we received from the historical to the current balance, that's why I asked the question of Theresa earlier. So, and it's just a study, right, as far as it's our first meeting and stuff like that?
Yeah, and that's exactly what this is about, is to get it in front of you, to try to have, start the conversation, to decide what direction, we go with this. We're not asking you to make a decision, just consider it. If we want to continue the conversation, maybe get back with us, address the questions, concerns you might have, and we'll try to get you as much information as we can. I do agree with you. I mean, we had the toll bridge financials for the past, I forget how long back we had it, 10 years, maybe more, 15 years. We are operating it now. The real-time data that we have is, I think, much more valuable to us than the previous history, because, we're operating it slightly differently in a different format, being a governmental agency. And, these numbers, are our numbers versus somebody else's. So, I mean, that information is very valuable to us. And I'll be realistic about it. We're not going to know what position, we are with that bridge until we probably have 2-3 years under our belt, after the work is done, after it's open. There's a lot of variables that we're playing with here. But nonetheless, we have these proposals. We need to, bring them to you to see what direction you want to go with them. So
It seems as though we might be able to go on parallel tracks and make sure we're comfortable with all the financials and understand them while we continue with the RFP process. I know end of the year is kind of a hard stop if we can possibly make it, so that people's health care and so forth can reset at an appropriate time. But does that sound good to you, to keep looking at both tracks at the same time?
The expensive has changed so much from a private for-profit entity to a public structure. I would be uncomfortable committing to yet another liability contractually with another company until we, at least as a committee, have a clear understanding of what we're saying, we're approving or voting for.
That is, if I just may add, that's the reason we have these discussion items as a board, as a commission, rather. I keep saying as a board because I'm used to saying that. But as a commission, we go over this, we discuss it, we try to get consensus. You're not always going to get consensus. I mean, you've watched township board meetings. We don't agree with everything. We're not going to. I don't expect you four and myself and Derek and Theresa and Souheil to agree with everything that we're doing together. You know, we're not going to have 8-0, 9-0 votes if we took an informal vote, but that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're going to discuss it. We're going to come up with the best plan for Groseal Township to move forward financially, structurally, and anything else that we have to look at. And that's why we're here, so.
And these RFPs, let's say we entered into one of the contracts. Is it for a 1 year? Or
Yeah,
is it?
we can base the term on what we can negotiate with them. I will throw another wrench in the works here for you. You know, the proposals we've seen for construction include a complete closure of the bridge for about 18 to 24 months, which quite possibly could start the end of next summer, maybe the beginning of the fall. You know, so that's an additional conversation about what do you do with your staffing during that period of time. That was one of the things we
They
thought.
won't be there when it opens. They'll be working somewhere else.
Maybe.
Right, and that's one of the things that a staffing company might be able to present to us that we would want to have conversations about. Are you able to take the staff that's at that bridge, reallocate them to a different wing of your operations, you know, result in a substantial reduction in our expense per the contract, you know, during that time period, yet still maintain that employee pool so they can come back and be available to us when, you know, the bridge reopens. So there's a lot to talk about here on this topic, and you know, we just need to start the conversation, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for explaining that, though.
so if you want, you know, get a hold of Theresa and myself about information that you might desire. If you have ideas about, you know, how best to, you know, start this conversation, whether it's a subcommittee or whatnot, we can have, you know, that conversation. But I know there's a lot to digest there. So.
Well, it seems like we should have a plan to move forward, or pretty much we'll be out of time before we blink, if you're trying to hit the end of the year.
Yes,
We
I
don't
would
have a
agree.
lot of time to mess around, so certainly looking at like the lowest 2 or 3 people and seeing if their prices are still valid. And I noticed MCM didn't have year 2 in their item. And the other is, what are we spending now? So if we can kind of get some of that information to start with, I think that'll help.
So I actually did that calculation, and I emailed it to, I believe I've emailed it to everybody. I can resend it.
Yeah, that would be great, yeah.
And just overall, it was right in line. If you take the average of the 7, it's right there. But I will resend that email, so you have that information. Just so you know, Mr. Johnson asked about the differences between a private company and a governmental entity. And with township managers' discussion of what happens with the employees when we have to close the bridge for the updates and the potential for unemployment. So private companies pay a percentage of gross wages based on their historical claims. If you have more claims, you're going to pay more. Governmental entities they're not contributing entities, they're reimbursing entities. So whatever unemployment that the state of Michigan pays to those individuals, we have to pay back to the state of Michigan. And so that's an expense, that would be an expense. If they were our employees, that would be an expense of the toll bridge.
Do you have that forecast?
I'm sorry?
Do you have that forecast?
Not in the current budget, no.
Okay.
Because it wasn't going to be closed before March 31st of '26,
Perfect.
but I will.
If we're looking 1, 2, 3 year commitments on RFPs, it'd be good to know. I'm trying to be conscious to stay close to the mic as.
That's all right, we can hear you. All right,
Now, do we think if we have that for next meeting, is that enough time, or do we need to meet before that?
Well, we can provide information. We can provide information to you between now and that meeting for you to be able to review. So we need to probably decide what the next meeting looks like as far as a potential action. You know, maybe, hey, we're going to select firm X and Y to bring in an interview, have a conversation with them, negotiate with them, whatever it might be. So, you know, maybe that's the next step. If you guys feel that.
it would
that'd
be an
appropriate.
action item, as we do on the board, of voting on not the individual company or firm, but you'd be voting on how many to bring in. And that's what we do on the board all the time. We first vote, you know, there's 5 that came in. We'd like to interview 2 or 3, so we can do that next meeting and make it an action item, and I'll put that on the agenda for next meeting to vote on the number that you as a group or us as a group would like to narrow it down to interview. So I think that would be important, just to get that going, just so we have it. As one state on the board, though, and this is in my own words, but as long as we keep the ball rolling, we can always stop it and figure out which direction we want to push the ball in. But
Sure.
I don't want anything to get stagnant, that's all.
Can I ask what was the drop-off? Was there any drop-off when ownership changed in terms of the prior employees to now township employees? Was
I think
there any
we
attrition?
were able to retain all but one. All but one.
And has there been any feedback from the employees? I'm sure they're aware of this pursuit. What's the general vibe of the existing team?
They all want to stay on. So, you know, they enjoy their job, they enjoy the environment they work.
They'll stay on as township employees, or
They understand that that is not necessarily guaranteed. Nobody has told me yet that they were walking if they were not. Because again, they look at the job that they do and there's not a lot of jobs out there that you experience what we experience.
Yeah, that's.
I haven't seen a lot of bridge operator jobs on Indeed. Oh.
You know, I don't foresee anybody, if we were sent to or have a staffing agency watch over us, I don't feel that anybody would say, I'm not working or I'm walk away.
Sure. And one last question: how many full-time and how many part-time do we have? All full-time, and there's 10 full-time.
There's 11, and we do have one that is part-time that she's not permanent right now.
Okay.
She was a carryover from the bridge closure.
All right.
Who is helping still in office.
Okay, so we added, what, 7, 8 employees during the bridge closure?
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, we usually double almost our staff long-term like that.
So and that was thanks to Maureen. She staffed it up. She had some access to some previous part-time employees that were willing to come on, and they trained up the folks that hadn't worked there before to try to, you know, make sure we had adequate staffing down there. So, I mean, all in all, I think that the township is, especially with Maureen's assistance, has done a good job in trying
Yeah,
to.
during the closure, I was going to make a comment that the one thing that did work smoothly was how hard the employees worked to control traffic and push people through when they're in the wrong lane and whatnot. They really did a phenomenal job. Please, yeah.
Speaking of the employees, with Derek's concurrence, I took a tour of the bridge here. And Maureen and Dale showed me around, and I was impressed by them and what they knew and everything. I'm all across the bridge, up into the operating room, down into the gears below. I was all over that bridge. And one of the things that Maureen indicated was that they can run the bridge with one person if they need to, because everybody knows how to do everything.
It's amazing.
From opening the bridge to taking the tolls to handling the money to, taking care of the traffic, and I was in the booth when there was a problem with somebody coming through, and they took care of it very professionally, which could have made somebody angry because they couldn't get through, but it was done very professionally while I was there. Yeah. But thank you for taking me through.
All right.
So, next meeting, we'll put an action item on there, I believe, to do something along those lines, and then any information you need to help to assist with, making a determination of those 2 or 3, or how many we want to move forward with, just, let us know, okay?
I'd just like to make sure, do you have a process in your mind to get any more financial information to make you comfortable? You're gonna work to, so,
I'm going to look forward to an email address, and then I'll copy everyone, so we're all on the same page. As like I said, going from the balance sheet with historical perspective, running a for-profit that they made money, I understand there's bills and stuff in the future, but just how's the structure look now, and how are you forecasting it, right? I know it's, what do you say, 90 days? We've had 3 months, but it's probably learned a lot in these last 3 months.
Right, so we've had 4 or 5
months.
months, so this was from April 1st to July 31st, and we have definitely learned a lot. And how to also classify things according to our chart of accounts, which is pretty specific. There were, I started with the financials of the prior owner, and again, things can get combined when you're doing financials. So they had a couple line items that were called other operating expenses, other office expense. Well, other is a pretty broad term.
I saw that, I'm just like, I went through the general ledger, I'm just like, there's other again, and that's a big number.
Yeah, and it was a big number. It wasn't just like a couple $1,000s.
No.
And so that's one of the things I've been working with Maureen and our accounts payable person is don't use those account numbers. Let's try and put them in the accounts that we have that exist, or I can add accounts,
So you
that we
created
can
a whole
see the
new chart
really
of
true
accounts?
story.
You created a whole new chart of accounts with all new GL numbers?
Right,
Perfect.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's that walk that, because the number, I doubt the revenue's changed. I'm sure the expensive has changed, the forecast has changed, but everybody's address and name has changed. So it's that walking from that chart of accounts to what we have now.
Okay.
And just so we're clear, so if we forecast labor, we understand that this is where it's gonna hit.
Just so you know, during our budget process, the commission will be involved in, next year's budget. So, and, we track all of our expenditures, we code all the expenditures, so we'll create and delete certain line items depending upon what our past 12 months of experience have been. And then you guys will be part of that process for forecasting expenditures, revenue, those type of things, so.
So on the revenue and expenditure report that I provided to you today, for all of those accounts, I could run a different report that would show the detail in each of those accounts. The way the system is, it goes by, it's the description, which doesn't tell you the vendor. But we know that when we're in the system, we know what things we can click on, and we can go right to the check and see what it was. But that might also give you some more information as well if I do a detailed report.
At least, this is probably just for me, but just helping map the expenditure reports and all the GLs back to what the historical revenues are and how it's being accounted for. It's kind of like having a Christmas
Historical,
fund. I don't want to buy anybody an expensive Christmas gift if I don't know how much is in my Christmas fund. So
So are you referring to as of the day we own the bridge?
there's a lot of detail since we've owned it. There's a lot of liabilities and how the balance was done prior to us owning it. And the RFP looked like it was written off that. And I'm not even sure the RFP, because of the overtime, the profit sharing, stock, I'm just like, we're talking about people double paying. These people might end up saying, well, I expected to be paid 25% more for the year.
So the majority of the RFP was based off of the township's interpretation or design of pay and benefits that we were able to, because as we discussed earlier, the private sector has a little bit different ability to compensate employees versus the public sector. You know, we don't generate profit. There can be no profit sharing if we don't generate a, it's actually illegal for us to do that. So, there are differences, but the RFP was written very similar to our current pay and benefit package that we offer the employees as the township. Yeah. So, any other questions on staffing?
Just, is the RFP with any amendments that you put into it since it was originally put out, is that still valid, or do you need to tweak that in any way before we finalize who we bring in?
No, I think for the most part it's valid. There maybe have been some minor adjustments to compensation, you know, maybe an hourly rate that was adjusted from a minor standpoint. Maybe the one employee we did lose, that was on the census, that was provided, but we've had a replacement employee for that person, so the numbers are the same. It's just the employee name and the rate is different, so very minor differences.
Yeah, just thinking if we're gonna ask them to finalize this and make sure if there's any minor changes, we could incorporate those in rather than dealing with them later.
Right, yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that discussion. A lot of good comments on that. Let's move to discussion item number 2, the project schedule update.
So we have hired H&H to do the engineering for the bridge. There is a copy of their progress report and Gantt chart in the packet, which shows their progress to date and their future projections. I'm sure you probably all are aware there were a variety of different aspects to the work they were providing. Some was compliance. The majority was project moving forward, the capital work that we're planning on doing. So that was included for your review. Also worth noting, when we talk about bonding, we have not bonded yet for the capital improvements. We've only bonded for the purchase and the engineering. We held off on the bonding for the capital improvement work until that bid came in and we knew how much we needed to bond for. So that will be upcoming maybe next year when the bonds are received in. When the bids are received in. Souheil is part of the Bridge Commission for a reason. If there are any questions about engineering, he can hopefully assist with those. In addition, if we want H&H to come in and meet with you, they've offered to do that, to answer any questions that you have about the scope of work that they're designing. So you let me know if you want to do that and what meeting you want that to occur at, and I'll set that up.
So they're getting into preliminary engineering now? They finished that up, when is that?
Yeah, according to their report, they have 35% of the bridge design completed. And I know they've been doing a lot of permit coordination, SHPO review, environmental assessment reviews. I have weekly meetings with them, phone calls with them. I think they're on Thursdays at 2, something like that, where they just update me as to what's going on. So they keep me in the loop, at least as far as how progress is going. But it's all laid out there, obviously, as far as what their schedule is for you.
H&H owns the Gantt chart,
I mean, that is the one that they put together for us.
and as an engineer, I love a red, yellow, green chart, but who determines the yellows and the reds?
They do.
They do?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd actually be interested in having them attend our monthly meetings with an update. Would anybody else be interested in that?
The issue with that is the expense.
Okay.
Yeah, so, that would have to be something we talked about, staying within budget earlier. That would be an additional expense. There are a number of meetings that they've built into their budget, but if we start talking about monthly meetings, obviously we'd have to get the cost for that and see, whether that's amenable to the group and to the board.
If there's something that they definitely have to be here for, we'll get them here.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll pay for that, but I mean, we're just trying to keep it,
Yeah.
because they have come to update
Yeah.
the township board, and so we can update the public. And if there's something that, I mean, not to say it's not important, but if one of the facets we're looking at, they gotta be here and they're the only one who can answer it, that's different. So,
Does it make sense that maybe we just listen to these weekly updates?
Yeah, when you're on the phone, if they talk to you every week, Are we allowed to listen to any of that, or?
I don't see why not. The only exception to that would be, are they permitted to all be on the same call at the same time? I'd have to look
Here's the
into it.
problem. If 3 show up for the call, you got a meeting according to the Open Meetings Act. Doesn't matter what you talk about. I mean, 3 of you, all 5 of us could go to when Daryl's gonna invite us to his Christmas party. We can all be there and we don't talk about business. That's not a violation. But I guarantee if you're just sitting listening, it's about business. So 3 of you really can't, well, only 2 of you. There's 5 of us.
Let me look into that.
2 actually that.
Talk with the clerk and make sure that there wouldn't be a problem there. I think the supervisor has a
Could be
valid point.
We'll find out though for you.
Yeah, but if that's the case, if only 2 of you attended one week and 2 attended the next week, I mean, there's ways that we can address that. So let me look into that for you.
So I have a couple questions on the milestones. There's 3 tasks they're going to finish in 9 days. I don't see a percent complete, or are they on track? Any of those that are behind schedule, any of those in danger of not making the completion date? They look like they're pretty significant tasks that need to be completed to move forward. Environmental studies, utility coordination, especially.
So your question is with regards to the
Yeah, there's-
fact that they're scheduled to be completed by the end of August
Yeah,
for environmental and maintenance of traffic, correct?
right.
And then project utility
Yeah, I
coordination.
mean, at what point does it get escalated to say, hey, we're gonna be 2 weeks or a month behind schedule? Well, it'd be nice to know that sooner rather than later.
I will inquire.
See how that
Give him a
can
call, can't we,
schedule
Derek?
get made
Talk
out.
to him.
I'll ask that
And Chris,
question.
I mean, that's what a percent, if you're 20% complete, it's a concern. If you're 95%, then
Right.
okay, you're probably gonna
I'll
get there.
I'll ask tomorrow and then get back to you guys.
Yeah, we can get that answer for you by calling him.
Well, the time to meet with them, if you're gonna have any impact, is really at about the 35% mark. If you wait to 90%, all the decisions are made, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
tough to change anything, especially if you're changing a direction. So
Yeah,
if
and,
they're at that point, we're getting pretty close to maybe wanting to meet with them.
yeah, and we can set up a time for them to get together with you. There was an issue that came up probably about a month or 2 months ago. We didn't have the benefit of having the Bridge Commission together, and they were posing the question to the township, to me, as far as the operational components of the bridge, whether, it was the township's preference for a mechanical versus a hydraulic operational system. So I'm not an engineer. I got to rely on them to provide a recommendation on that, which they did. And I had directed them to move forward in that direction based upon their recommendation, at least for the planning process, right? So they had decided to go forward with a hydraulic system rather than a mechanical system, and partially and primarily because of the availability of parts, the availability of service, versus the mechanical components, which would be much harder to respond to as far as a need for repair, part fabrication, things of that sort. So, that's where the input from the commission and that conversation would be beneficial now that you're up and running. But maybe, I can get them to the next meeting. There are meetings that are built into into their budget, just not every single one. So I can see about maybe the next one having them come down. Matter of fact, they had offered that last time I had talked to them, that now that you guys are established, coming down and sitting with you. So,
So you're saying that the movement of the bridge is gonna be hydraulic now rather than the gear system that they presently have?
that's what they had proposed. That's what they're proposing in their design, is a hydraulic mechanical system. Is it a mechanical system if it's hydraulic? It's a hydraulic system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, versus a mechanical system, essentially for the turning of the bridge. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the engineering report?
All right. Thank you very much again for your concerns and your questions. Traffic study report. There's one thing I just want to start with this. When you look at in the packet, now I may have a traffic engineering background, and I'll tell you what, that was some reading, that's all I'm gonna tell you. So, I mean, you gotta be a half Philadelphia attorney and half accident reconstructionist and half civil engineer to each, and Souheil actually can talk about this, but each company, they have a little different software sometimes, and this one was a little more difficult for me to read, if that's what this section will be about, but
Yeah, so everybody that traversed that bridge during the bridge closure was aware that there were significant traffic backups. So, talking with H&H, you know, we wanted to take the opportunity to be able to review the real-time, you know, traffic backup information when that was ongoing, with the interest of trying to develop options to reduce those backups when that bridge is the only game in town. So Clark Dietz was brought in by H&H to review the second time that the Free Bridge closed, what was going on down there, and that's where this report came from. They were asked to provide to us a variety of different options that we could then review and potentially advocate for at a county level that could be implemented during the closure of the toll bridge to help, you know, those traffic backups during the next round of Free Bridge closure, whenever that occurs. So that report was included in your packet. I think they've made a variety of different suggestions, some more involved than others. But once again, being a discussion item, I wanted to present it to you so you were aware of what options exist, okay? Obviously, one of the options they suggested from a traffic backup resolution standpoint was plate readers rather than toll operations. I mean, those would be your toll operations. There were two other options with adding lane widths or additional lanes. So they didn't, I want to be very clear, they didn't review operations, they reviewed traffic, right? That's all that they were tasked with. So
when they looked at the plate readers, was there any data that showed how many of those don't ever pay the toll?
I looked into that.
And what did you find out?
All right,
Because
here, just for about the plate readers, remember what Derek is talking about. It's not the business aspect they were
Right.
looking at. Nothing against H&H. They were looking at a traffic
Flow.
flow
Right.
aspect.
Okay.
Now, the best thing we could do is open up the gates, let everybody through for nothing. I mean, that's not an option. It's not a business option. So what I looked at, and I found out that approximately 25%, I called a company that they handle them down, not M80, what's it, 8090 in Ohio?
the toll.
Yeah, what's the toll road? Whatever the toll road is.
8076.
Whatever, is that it? Okay. But a company that handles their tolls, what they have to do is, you know, it's a plate reader, then they mail it to you,
Yeah.
and people that have an account, it's great. People like us, maybe, that just go to Florida, not to say you don't pay it, Chris, but anybody that gets hit, they send you a letter up here, and there's a certain amount, and then they have to have a separate company that tries to get the money from you, not that company. So once again, and the cost of it, the one gentleman that I talked to was about $1 million to put the plate readers in. Now, depending, it was much more because there were so many of them there, because they have so many lanes. But the average cost is about $1,250,000, about $1.25 million for the system. Then you have to have a company that chases you to get your payment, and then those who don't pay, then they come after you in another way. So, I mean, it's, yes, Ohio doesn't have to have people there. Now, again, it's traffic aspect they came up with. I'm not sure, and we'll talk about this. This is why we're here. But if that is the best business aspect we should be looking at, but once again, the upfront money for $1.25 million, how many years does that take of our revenue for workers on that bridge to recoup just from that? So it's a different.
Without knowing the non-accruals, you won't know.
Well, and you won't, because also we have to have workers, just as Maureen stated, we have to have somebody there to open the bridge still. You know, it's not like we can't have 0 workers in case something goes wrong, something breaks. We still have to have workers there. So it's not the panacea for what a wonderful thing. I'm really, once I looked into it, as you can see, my attitude isn't, I'm not really pro license plate reader. I may have put them on Groseal when I was a police chief, but it's a totally different system. So that's just, it's a business aspect we need to look at. But this company, and I get their point. Look, these guys are traffic engineers. That's their job. And they can come up with wonderful things for a traffic study to improve the flow. I mean, I'm not sure they even care about the business end.
Was
So
there any-
That's where it's from, Chris.
Thank you. Was there any executive summary or any kind of distilled, Joe probably got a lot farther into the reading it than I did.
Yeah, at the end, I mean, there is a summary about, this is your preferred option, second option, third option. What I did ask them for, which they didn't produce before this meeting, was when it comes to lane modifications, I would like to see some overheads with some,
Yeah.
with it overlaid over the top, where
See it.
Mock-ups.
mock-ups of where that lane reconfiguration would occur and whatnot. I think it would be derelict of us if we didn't take the opportunity with the bridge work upcoming to try to rework some of the surrounding infrastructure to alleviate some of those issues. So that was the purpose of this, and something that needs to be on our radar to either advocate to the county for, or when we do the construction project, take that opportunity while the bridge is closed to make some of these modifications. So
Is there a target date the county bridge will close again?
our understanding is the county bridge would not close again until after our bridge work is complete.
They've agreed to work with us, Chris.
At
In other
least-
words, no two at once down.
At least bridge closure. That doesn't mean they won't do work that doesn't require a closure. But and it also doesn't mean that there won't be
Yeah, of
emergency
course,
closures.
yes.
I don't want everybody to think that
Lose power.
You lose power. We're not guaranteeing any of that, but
Right.
as the supervisor had mentioned, the discussions we've had with them is they don't want to.
So this study was done as part of the overall plan for
Correct.
the capital improvements of the toll bridge. So
Correct.
There
Yeah.
should be,
And the best time, I think, to look
when
at
it's
this.
shut down, right?
Right.
When you're not impeding any traffic.
That's
right.
exactly correct, because one of the areas that we looked at, as you know, it's a private road where we own it. And I did some measurements out there, and, Souheil, I'm sorry, what is the book, not Boca, but what's the book that they go?
UTCD.
Yes, okay, thank you. I know that you have to have so many feet for a lane, you have to have, and because we could have done some things to change the lane usage, because it's a private road, we didn't have the room and we had liability. Doesn't mean you still have that liability if you don't do things correctly, and if you kind of cut corners and make things a little smaller,
Sure,
and we
yeah.
have a head-on coming off the bridge onto the bridge, we are very responsible for that. And so that was one, I hate to throw a monkey wrench in everything we're bringing up tonight, but I looked into this to
part of it.
change the lanes when we were buying the bridge, to see how we could make traffic better when it closed, and that didn't work out. It didn't work out. So the road would have to be changed.
So the road entry off of Jefferson to the toll booth is owned by the bridge company?
No,
Or
no, I'm talking about coming off the toll bridge, when you go to the toll plaza, we only own about like 50 feet, maybe not even that much,
Okay.
going towards West Jefferson.
Right, okay.
That's a county road coming from Jefferson all the way up to, you'll notice a
Riverview.
deviation in better road than not. The better road is our road, the not is the county's
I
road.
see.
Who'd have thought that, huh? So,
Relative to that, when we have the heavy traffic with the Free Bridge being closed, we have 4 lanes in the toll. There are 2 out and 2 in. And one of the issues, of course, was that 2 lanes coming in, you're taking money, but the money is in the left of the 2 lanes coming in. So those going to the card reader had to work through the traffic to get over to the right. So that was a conflict. Thought occurred to me that perhaps when the Free Bridge is shut down, the 2 lanes on the right could both be toll-taking lanes, because that's where the time is taking the tolls. And then if the exit lane closer to the toll booth becomes a free or a card reader exit going on to the island, then that would be in the left lane. For instance, people coming up Jefferson from the south, there's a backup if you could be on the You could be outside of that, you turn and you're right into the lane to get on without going through the rest of the traffic. Perhaps that could be done. You still have one exit going off, which there's no card reader at that point because you're going off,
Patrick,
for
what I
free,
did was-
coming on, paying double.
Oh, I apologize,
Yeah,
I interrupted
go
you.
ahead.
I'm sorry. Were you done? I didn't mean to jump in. What I did, once again, just because I have a traffic engineering background, I'm an accident reconstructionist now by profession, and so I handled all the traffic situations and all the possibilities. What we were finding was you would have 3 lanes choked down to 1, so the choke point would be traded. The choke point from 3 to 1, they tried it in 2006, 7 at the bridge. They had some accidents. And so what you have is, I understand exactly what you're saying. 1 is coming off the island, 3 are going on. Now those 3 are actually choked down to 1 lane because only 1 coming on, we can only put 1 on the toll bridge, 1 coming off and 1 going on. So what was happening back in, I forget the year, but it might have been 06, 07, but they tried that for a while and it really was a disaster because you'd have 3 lanes down to 1. Now, when you choke lanes down on the highway, you usually choke them 3 to 2, 2 to 1. And going from 3 to 1 can be a disaster and accidents. And so that would be our liability once again. Not to say that it couldn't work. What I want to look at is when we're redoing the bridge, about the size of the area we have there and in redoing those roads and making it wider. That's what I'm looking at, because then we wouldn't be choking it down from 3, we can go 3 to 2 to 1 as opposed to 3 to 1. It just, I looked into it, the bridge did it, it turned into a disaster. You always choke them down one at a time, so you're trading a choke point for another one, if you know what I'm talking about.
I can understand that. There's perhaps a way to do that with the red light, green light control, that you only allow one gate to go at a time and the other one has a delay before a second green light goes.
Now, that was what they came up with of a possibility to change that 3 to 1.
Yeah.
Because the other way, you actually, I mean, it's true. Once you wait in line, I get it with people. You wait in line for a half hour, man, it turned green.
Yeah.
You're on your way to the bridge. Do you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah, well, you wouldn't want 2 green lights at the
yeah,
same
it's just,
time,
that's
exactly.
human nature.
Or
I get
3.
it. I'm not going to knock people. But once you've been waiting a half hour, how about the 45-minute wait, you know? So that is the point. But I want to look at when we have some plans, Derek and I, which we will obviously bring up with this group, to redo part of the road there. And we wanted to get it wider. And if we can do something at the toll plaza to make it flow better, that's what we're going to talk about. But no, Patrick, you're right, that it can work if it's done correctly. It can work.
I want to emphasize very highly that we really benefited from the existing staff, especially Maureen and the rest of the crew that's been there for a while. You know, they know and have known more about that bridge than we could ever imagine to know in the 4 or 5 months that we've operated it. So we relied heavily on them about, you know, what are the options here? You know, the free bridge closed, I think, a month after we purchased that. So, you know, we had the benefit of their experience of operating that bridge for 15, 20 years with the crew that was there to say, okay, this is what you have to do. This is how we have to do it. This is the most efficient because we've tried this and we've tried that. So really what was implemented out there was what the bridge company had used for a number of years, and what was being used out there was based upon trial and error and what they found to be able to be worked and not worked. One of the biggest complications we had was that overweight vehicles, we had to close the bridge down to bring those single vehicles across escorted. That led to a significant number of delays, but that's based upon the condition and the capabilities of the bridge. And the other alternative was just not to have any of that traffic go across, which would have been a big, big problem for the businesses and, you know, everything on the island. So I think to the supervisor's point, to your point, to the point of this study is, you know, I think we were maximizing what we could with the infrastructure that existed out there. We were maximizing what we could based upon the condition of the bridge. Anything above and beyond that to make it more efficient is going to require some sort of infrastructure investment. And that's what the purpose of this study was, to understand what that looks like and how best to implement it. Now would be a good time to do it when we're going to close that bridge for
They
construction.
used a simulation modeling, traffic flow analysis to do all the various
And they did on-site,
Variations of
yeah, they
it.
did on-site review when the Free Bridge was actually closed to see exactly what was happening up there during that traffic flow amount. So we were able to benefit from, having it done then when the Free Bridge was closed. So, something for you to pay attention to keep
Just
track
this
of.
this last closure, right? Because during the
Correct.
pandemic, it was really
Correct.
anomaly. There was nobody going to work. anyway,
Exactly.
So.
Yep. So.
Another question I have is, I know the license plate readers are out of the question. Is there any potential for using easy passes for those who don't have the bridge pass? If, friends or family coming on the island, they have the Turnpike Easy Passes. Has that ever been reviewed, or I don't know what that would cost? And
Well, I
another
mean, that's
way to
something that we can
pay.
look at is, deviating from the current design, bridge pass design. I wouldn't say that necessarily, license plate readers are completely out of the question. I think that it's worth looking at so that you can say to the residents, we looked at it and it didn't make sense, or it made sense for these various reasons. I know, to the supervisor's point, back office billing for all of that can be a substantial expense. I've heard anywhere between, 20, 30, 40% of the revenue goes to just cover that cost, but I don't know that for sure, without actually doing the research on it. So I just wanted to make that point. But, I think, reviewing, what the report says and trying to incorporate it into the construction, will probably be a worthwhile endeavor. So.
We've got a lot to talk about, as you can see.
Yeah, part of that with that plate reader is the bill goes to the owner of the vehicle, and I know in my personal experience, Ford lease vehicles are not owned by me; they're owned by the Ford Motor Credit Company on American Road in Dearborn. So we drove our lease car to New York City, went through the tunnel, and it took 8 to 10 months to finally get Ford convinced that I paid the $14 toll because the bill went to them, and that's what raised my question about what is the percentage of people that just don't pay, because is it, you can go to a collection agency for, I don't know, $4, $8, whatever it ends up being,
The other complication with all that is I don't even know that license plate readers you wouldn't be able to do that right now, because the staff, they just don't take money. They classify vehicles, which you might be able to get the classification by the license plate, but with the weight restrictions on the bridge right now, they basically sort the vehicles. You are or you aren't. I'm checking a weight slip to see if you're compliant. If you have the significant weight reductions that we have there, we have to sort vehicles to make sure there aren't vehicles going across that aren't permitted to go. So just because you have a license plate, if you can cross, that's not the case up there. So, those are all things that need to be reviewed and discussed, but it's not as easy as just implementing the system. There's additional complications, so.
The dynamics are so great from the different types of vehicles, as he's stating, that part of their job up there is to delineate between, a human has to do it, a machine can't, and between vehicle with a trailer, over 35,000 pounds, over 20, whatever, under 29,000 pounds, 2 axles, 3 axles, everything's by axles. So there was a lot more to that when I checked into it. But anyway, we're going to talk about it.
Did you get your web cameras?
They are almost done. We had a problem with DTE in a pole, so they had to put in a new pole for me. And
Well, that's what caused the problem this morning. Your
well,
webcams.
they hit a line. No, I'm kidding. That was in Riverview, the problem, not us. A station went out in Riverview. But anyway, we're almost there.
Yeah.
We're almost there. I promise you that. All right, are we good on this one?
I am, thank you.
Thank you for your questions, your concerns, very thought-provoking, and it will help out. Okay, Derek, do you want to go over marketing?
This is kind of a feel-good thing. It's less serious than the rest, but the Groseal Bridge Company, a lot of their logo and stuff is still up at that bridge. The conversation has been, well, does the township want to adopt a new logo or something for that structure? There have been talk, an idea was floated, maybe we make it a community challenge to, if you want to try to design one and submit it, and maybe we'll make a selection of your logo or something along those lines, as well as ideas like a bridge walk too. The goal is to make sure that the residents feel that this is their bridge, that they have ownership in this bridge, at least in my mind, that, this is a product, the purchase of this is a product of their willingness, to take on the ownership of that structure. So I think anything that we can do to help facilitate that feeling of ownership and that it's a community-owned bridge, I think will pay dividends down the road as far as people's understanding that this is their structure. So those are just a couple of different ideas that have been thrown out over the past 3, 4, 5 months, and obviously open to other ideas or suggestions from the commission, some of the lighter stuff, I think, when we're faced with all this additional heavy stuff. So it's nothing more than just an idea to think about, but be looking for your input on that in the future.
Okay.
So.
I'd like to put it, I know this is on the back burner, but I'm going to see how much we have on the agenda for next meeting. But I'd like to put it in a discussion item. I think this would be really good for the community. I think it's just, to get the community involved in anything, I think is better, no matter what it is. But maybe like you said, I thought a logo like contest, we could have 50 different come in or 100, which is great because you could look at some things you maybe can't conceive of yourself. I'm not an artist. So if it's okay with you, if the agenda isn't too long, because this would be something nice we could start on, and over the winter would be good, to get this done. Is that all right to put it on as
I think
maybe
so,
a discussion item if it's not too big?
Yes.
Are you talking about going through the high school to bring people in?
Anywhere. We go to the high school, we go to the middle school, their art departments, anybody, we put it in the paper, we put it in, put any kind of notice out there, anybody that would like to, we got to figure out what we want to come up with a logo from the bridge. That's what they did when I was real young, for like Groseal High School. They had, I'm sorry, not Groseal High School, but it went to the high school, but it was Groseal Schools. For their logo, they had contests for that, and it was hundreds of people put in, and they came up with something. But I'd like to do something like that, though, to start with, just to give us a logo that we would have for recognition and make it more, it's ours. It's a community, owned entity, a fixture, so.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
All right. We're about done with our first meeting today. We still have public comment. It's up to the commission. You don't have to have, and Patrick, you're the chairperson, and actually you have a lot of say of what you want and what you don't want in making the agenda. And if you want 2 public comments, I just do it at the township board meeting because I wanted people to come. If they had something, they'd have to wait 2 hours. No offense. I mean, it's our business meeting. I don't expect you to wait 2.5 hours to come with a public comment when you can do it in the beginning about anything, and might be about your business on Macomb Street, about anything. So we have 2 public comments we put on here. I'll ask tonight, but we'll talk about it if you want. Would you like 2 as a group for the
I
next
think-
meetings, or is one?
I think 2 sounds good.
That's
I
fine.
mean, I've seen it at your meetings. I think
Yeah.
it works well.
Okay.
And in light of trying to get community involvement in this thing, I think that's perfect.
Well, the reason is afterwards, they can comment on what we did and what we voted on. And then the first public comment can be on anything. We'll say that then. Is that all right? Same as the board?
Sure.
Anything with the bridge, obviously, I guess.
Yeah, you agree?
Second.
Because it's a commission meeting, anything with the bridge or anything that has to do with that, so not just an
Good
agenda
idea.
or voted on. Okay? All right, well, we'll go to public comment right now. Is anybody from the audience? Mr. Mark, come on up. Is it on,
Now
Mike?
we're on.
Okay.
First, I just want to say thank Mo, do I have to go, Mark Mills, 2359.
Yes, you do.
23509 West River. So, I just want to say thank you for your dedication, your commitment to this board. I feel very confident, especially after hearing this first meeting, of the choices we made and to start our first bridge commission. So thank you very much. As a board member and as a commission member as well, I understand the time and commitment it's going to take. And this is going to be a big undertaking. And I appreciate the time and effort you're going to put into this. I really do. And it takes a lot of time and effort to actually do a decent job or a good job. We have so many things coming across our desks on a regular basis. And we really do appreciate your help in these matters. This is an important piece of infrastructure, as you put it, for it's right up there with public safety, in my opinion, as well. And I appreciate that comment. This is something we're all going to need, we're all going to depend on. It's a lifeline for us. So thank you, welcome. I'm looking forward to the next meeting. Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Mills. Anybody else from the audience? Trustee Heil is here. Come on up.
What I have to say is essentially very similar to Mark. Got a little of my thunder stolen, you might say. But you people are information hungry. I like that. You know that with more information, you make better decisions. But you also are probably aware enough to know that you, with all good faith, have made a decision, and you got down the road a little bit, and it didn't work out, you had to change it. I'm saying that with a smile on my face because I see us going through that process. You're hungry for information. You're going to have to make a decision because of time constraints before you have as much information as you're comfortable with. Just don't beat yourself up, okay? That's my first point. There's one other thing. I'd like you to seriously consider putting a generator on that bridge because of this event that had occurred. It doesn't have to be now, like in the next or in 2 days or anything, but because I don't recall ever having power failure there before. But when we get to the circumstance where we're the only store in town and the Free Bridge is closed down for 18 to 24 months, we can't afford to have a close down on power when we need it most. And there's going to be enough revenue coming through and traffic to pay for it at the time. But I look forward to you guys, and I'm going to be around to listen. Thank you.
You, Bill.
Thank you, Willem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the audience? Anything? We good? Anybody good? Okay. With that said, are there any comments? Since it's our first meeting, before we close and ask for a motion to adjourn, any comments that you four, anybody like to make? It's your first meeting, and I'm glad you're here. I really am. I'm looking forward. Here, I asked you for a comment, and I already started. I'm really looking forward to this. I think that putting all our heads together and the backup that we have with Theresa, Souheil, Maureen, our operations manager, and Derek, who's really managing and juggling everything, and myself, I think we're going to make some progress. So thank you all. Anything else you'd like to say before I ask for a motion?
I'm all set.
We good? All right. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Somebody second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.